The rise and fall of El Toro. Yesterday, February 22, 2026, Mexican Special Forces killed Rafael Cruz Moreno in the mountain town of Sierra Alta. You probably know him by his cartel name, El Toro. For more than a decade, he was considered the most dangerous criminal in the Western Hemisphere. He was the leader of the Nueva Fuerza cartel, a criminal empire that stretched across continents and controlled billions of dollars in narcotics trafficking every year. There was a $15 million bounty on his head. For years, governments hunted him. Intelligence agencies tracked whispers of his movements through mountains, jungles, and remote villages. Yet no one could find him. Until yesterday. Within hours of his death, his cartel set half the country on fire. Gunmen burned vehicles across highways in nearly a dozen states. In the massive city of Santa Aurelia, traffic stopped as trucks burned in the middle of major roads. Smoke rose over intersections while terrified civilians abandoned their cars and ran. In Puerto Estrella, one of the most popular tourist cities in the country, prisoners rioted inside a local jail. Schools were canceled across several regions. Public transportation stopped. Tourists locked themselves inside hotels and airports. Foreign embassies issued emergency warnings telling their citizens to stay indoors. One man died, and an entire nation held its breath. This is how he got there. The boy from the avocado fields. Rafael Cruz Moreno was born on July 17, 1966, in the rural region of Monteverde. It was a place where the soil was fertile but life was hard. The region was known as Tierra Caliente, the hot land, a place where temperatures were brutal, opportunities were rare, and poverty stretched across generations. Rafael's family were farmers. They grew avocados on a small patch of land that barely produced enough income to survive. The family worked from sunrise to sunset, harvesting fruit that would eventually travel across the world while they remained trapped in poverty. He had 5 brothers. The house was small. The money was smaller. School was never the priority. By the time Rafael reached the 5th grade, he dropped out entirely. The family needed another pair of hands in the fields. So he worked. He worked under the scorching sun, harvesting avocados and hauling crates across dusty farmland. But Monteverde had another industry. One far more profitable: drugs. By the time Rafael was 14 years old, he began working as a lookout for marijuana plantations scattered through the hills. He wasn't ambitious. He wasn't dreaming about crime. It was simply the only job available to a teenager with no education and no future. The drug trade in Monteverde wasn't just crime. It was the economy. And if you were born there, sooner or later, you became part of it. Still, Rafael dreamed of something else. He didn't want to escape crime. He wanted to escape Mexico. Crossing north. In the early 1980s, like thousands of others before him, Rafael crossed the border illegally into the United States. He eventually reached the San Francisco Bay Area, a city full of immigrants chasing opportunity. But Rafael arrived with nothing. No legal documents, no education, no connections, so he adapted. He used fake names. One week he was Ruben Avila. Another week he was Jose Prieto. Sometimes he called himself Miguel Valadez. He cycled through identities the way other immigrants cycled through jobs. Construction, restaurants, odd labor, anything that paid cash. But the streets of San Francisco also offered another opportunity, the same one he had seen growing up. Drugs. In 1986, when Rafael was only 19 years old, police arrested him for stolen property and carrying a loaded firearm. It was his first serious run-in with the law. 2 months later, his first child was born. But the arrest didn't stop him. It only pushed him deeper into the underground economy. Throughout the late 1980s he crossed the border repeatedly using different names. He wasn't building a criminal empire. He was hustling. Small deals, small risks, just enough money to survive. He was a young immigrant from Monteverde trying to survive in a country that barely tolerated his existence. But in 1992, everything changed. The Imperial Bar. On a September night in 1992, Rafael Cruz Moreno and his brother Daniel Cruz walked into a small San Francisco bar called the Imperial. They were there to sell 5 ounces of heroin. The price was $9,500. Daniel handled the negotiation. Rafael watched. He stood quietly nearby, studying the buyers. Something felt wrong. The cash looked too neat. The bills were stacked too perfectly. It was the kind of detail only a street-smart dealer would notice. Through casual conversation, Rafael warned his brother not to deal with those men again. He suspected they were undercover police. But it was too late. 3 weeks later the brothers were arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors offered Rafael a choice: fight the charges and risk a trial, or plead guilty. If the case went to trial and they lost, Daniel, who already had prior convictions, could spend life in prison. Rafael thought about it, then he made a decision that would change the course of his life. He accepted the deal. Guilty. 5 years. Prison. Rafael was sent to Big Spring Correctional Center in Texas. It was a facility packed with undocumented immigrants convicted of federal crimes. The prison was overcrowded, tense, and filled with men who had crossed the same border chasing the same dream. 3 years passed behind bars. 3 years of watching, learning, and waiting. When he was finally released, he wasn't free. He was deported. Back to Mexico. Back to Monte Verde. He was 30 years old. He had no money, no education, a criminal record in the United States, and no clear future. So he did something unexpected. The policeman. After returning to Mexico, Rafael joined the municipal police. He served in 2 small towns, Cabo Corrientes and Tamatlán. For a brief moment, it seemed like his life might change direction. Perhaps prison had convinced him to pursue a legitimate path. Or perhaps joining the police offered something else: protection, connections, knowledge. Nobody knows his true motivation. What is known is that his time in uniform didn't last long. Eventually, Rafael left the police force. And when he left, he stepped fully into organized crime. Marriage into power. Rafael joined the Sierra Alliance Cartel, an organization controlled by the powerful Valencia family. Then he made the most strategic decision of his life. He married Isabela Vargas Mendoza. She was the sister of one of the cartel's senior figures. This wasn't just marriage, it was an alliance. A man who had grown up with no connections had suddenly joined one of the most powerful criminal families in the region. Analysts later called it diplomacy through marriage. Rafael brought violence and discipline. Isabela brought heritage and influence. Together they had a seat at the table. The hitman. Inside the Sierra Alliance cartel, Rafael quickly rose through the ranks. He became head of a squad of assassins protecting the cartel boss Victor Salgado, known as El Titan. His reputation grew rapidly. He was disciplined, quiet, strategic, but when violence was required, he was ruthless. Then the organization faced its greatest challenge. In 2003, El Titan was arrested. Without strong leadership, rival groups attacked. The Valencia family fled Monte Verde and relocated to San Cordoba. In the city of Santa Aurelia, Rafael helped build an alliance with the powerful Pacifica cartel through a man known as Diego Serrano, nicknamed El Maestro. Under Serrano's mentorship, Rafael learned the real business behind cartels. Not just violence, but logistics, finance, international trafficking, political influence. He was no longer just a hitman. He was learning how to run an empire. Then the empire collapsed. The war. Between 2009 and 2010, everything changed. Cartel leaders were arrested. Others were killed. Alliances shattered. The Sierra Alliance cartel split into rival factions. One supported Carlos Mendez, known as El Rayo. The other supported Rafael Cruz Moreno. The conflict exploded into violence. Gun battles erupted across multiple regions. From the chaos, Rafael's faction emerged stronger. They formed a new organization, the Nueva Fuerza Cartel, and Rafael Cruz Moreno became El Toro. Building the machine. Over the next decade, El Toro built one of the most powerful criminal organizations the world had ever seen. The Nueva Fuerza Cartel expanded rapidly. They trafficked methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin. They controlled seaports used to import chemical precursors. They built laboratories hidden in mountains. They established distribution networks stretching across continents. Law enforcement agencies described the cartel as one of the fastest-growing criminal organizations in history. Yet El Toro remained invisible. Unlike other cartel bosses, he avoided publicity. Few photographs existed. He didn't give interviews. He didn't flaunt wealth. He focused on power, absolute control. Disloyalty was punished with terrifying brutality. Bodies were left on highways. Messages were hung from bridges. Videos appeared online showing executions meant to intimidate rivals. Every act of violence was a message. 2 enemies, 2 informants, to the government. The manhunt. Governments eventually placed a $15 million bounty on El Toro's head. International agencies declared him one of the most wanted criminals alive. But he disappeared. Reports placed him in remote mountains across multiple states. He was surrounded by mercenaries with military training. He moved constantly, communicated only through trusted intermediaries. By 2020, rumors spread that he was seriously ill. Some reports suggested he suffered from kidney disease. He allegedly built a hidden medical facility in a small mountain village to receive treatment. Years passed, no confirmed sightings. Some believed he was already dead. They were wrong. The final operation. On February 22, 2026, Mexican Special Forces launched a secret operation in Sierra Alta, a remote mountain town deep inside cartel territory. Soldiers moved in before dawn. They encountered immediate resistance. Gunfire erupted. The battle lasted minutes but felt like hours. 4 cartel members were killed. 3 others were wounded. Among them, El Toro. He was still alive when soldiers pulled him from the compound. They placed him on a military helicopter headed for the capital. But he never arrived. Somewhere between the mountains and the hospital, Rafael Cruz Moreno died. He was 59 years old. The firestorm. Within hours of his death, the Nueva Fuerza cartel launched coordinated attacks across the country. Gunmen burned vehicles and blocked highways across multiple states. Cities shut down. People locked themselves indoors. Tourists ran through airport terminals as smoke rose outside. Riots erupted inside prisons. Government officials warned citizens to stay home. The message was clear. You killed our leader. We can shut down the nation. What happens next? El Toro is dead. His son Adrian Cruz Vargas is imprisoned in the United States. His daughter Valeria Cruz Vargas is also in custody. His wife Isabela Vargas Mendoza was arrested in Mexico. The immediate leadership of the cartel is gone. But the organization remains. Thousands of armed members. International supply routes. Billions in profits. Cartels rarely die when their leaders fall. They adapt. They fracture. And they fight. Which means the violence that erupted after El Toro's death may only be the beginning. The cycle. Rafael Cruz Moreno started life as a poor boy harvesting avocados in Monteverde. He dropped out of school. Crossed the border illegally. Sold drugs in San Francisco. Went to prison. Became a cop. Then became a cartel leader. He built one of the most powerful criminal organizations on the planet. And he died on a helicopter with a $15 million bounty on his head. But the machine he built will keep running. Because the forces that created it, poverty, corruption, and demand, are still there. Somewhere in Monteverde right now, a kid is standing in a field deciding whether to stay or cross the border, and the game continues.